We Happy Few, a story where we dive into a world of drugs, poverty and delusions. A world where hope is in rare supply at the end of a terrifying war against Germany and suffering loss greater than people realise. In the previous episode, we left Arthur storming out of Sally's apartment. Though Sally was willing to leave Wellington Wells with Arthur, he was unwilling to wait till morning or hear her reasons why. Though Arthur may have said he saw Sally as an innocent in what happened with her and his dad, he still holds on to some resentment towards her. He leaves the apartment saying never again, and sadly Arthur is right as he never sees Sally again in his journey. Arthur has a letter of transit to get back to the parade district now, and hopefully he can escape the city to find his brother Percy. When presenting the letter of transit to the constable on duty, he welcomes us with a remark, "Not a moment too soon." Arthur is curious. Pressing the constable for more details, all the constable is willing to say is that it wouldn't be wise to rely on the bridge remaining operational in the future. We're left to wonder if the bridge is going to be closed for good, and why would that happen? As Arthur crosses the bridge, we find another memory. This one is called trains. Percy is telling Arthur he does not like trains, but Arthur replies he does, and mentions when they went to Plymouth and Percy refused to get off the train. Percy then moves to the topic he actually wanted to address: Germany. Percy tells Arthur he doesn't want him to go to Germany. Arthur becomes defensive, asking, "You think I want to go? I don't know where we're going. I don't know what they're going to do with us there, and who knows if we're really coming back. But I don't have much of a choice, do I?" Percy replies, "Who will talk to me when you're gone?" And with that question, things start to unravel as we begin to grasp the truth of what happened that day. Percy was never meant to be on the train to Germany. It was Arthur and Arthur alone. It is safe to assume, despite the structure of their relationship, Percy is the older brother and not Arthur. However, for some reason, Percy was forced onto the train. In previous memories, it was given the idea they both had to go, and Arthur has spoken how he promised to take care of Percy when they got to Germany. Yet Arthur lied about his age to get off, leaving, nay, abandoning his brother to the Germans. The question we now have is why Percy was there to begin with, and why did Arthur leave him there? For now, we will have to wait for more information. Till then, Arthur needs to get to Britannia Bridge via the broadcast tower, which leads to Appleholm Station to get to the train. So off to the broadcast tower we must go. But, and this is a big one at that, no jokes, Phil. The tower is not as easy to access as it once was before Arthur was forced to leave the parade. It has been cut off with shutters and is guarded by red bobbies. Arthur comments on how they must be taking the plague more serious as it must be spreading fast. This highlights how bad the situation is getting. Resources are becoming more scarce and they are losing materials required to make joy, maybe even medicine for everything else, including this plague that has been ravaging the city. In Arthur's journey, despite there being roads, we have never seen a car drive past. Yes, the smaller areas seem too small for a vehicle. However, we are now in the heart of the city, where we see buses and cars left abandoned at the side of the road, and like the rest of the city, they are never in use. The population also seems small. As mentioned, we are now in the heart of Wellington Wells, yet there are fewer people here than the other districts Arthur has travelled through. Some may be asking why I call Wellington Wells the city. It feels more like a group of small villages on an island rather than a city. However, if you notice on your travels, there is a lot of rubble and desecrated homes where the wastrels live. This is a result of Germany sending bombers. Wellington Wells was a thriving city at one point, and war took its toll on the island. Somehow the people never managed to rebuild what was lost and now seem to live in small parts of what remains, giving the impression they are living in villages which remained intact while the social outcasts live in the decimated areas. With the bridges being controlled by bobbies and downer detectors and the need for letters of transit, it feels the higher powers are not only controlling the population but have installed their own caste system. They are ruled by the few and the wealthy who deem who is worthy to live where and with little hope of going to a better place. But why would they when they have such happy lives where they are? Back to the game. To get to the broadcast tower, Arthur must find a way to open the shutters. A red bobby is patrolling the area. This can be done by going into the document control point and swiping the keycard from the maintenance worker. He isn't looking and doesn't seem to mind Arthur being there. With his card you can access the room that not only will open the shutters but disable the bobby poppers to stop anyone coming after Arthur. This comes in handy as the next part is stealthy. I love a good stealth mission. If you've watched my game streams, you know I'm as quiet as an elephant tap dancing. Arthur needs to disable the motorline pumps to ensure they have no power to fix what Arthur broke. As Arthur leaves the building, he overhears a conversation between a woman and a joy doctor. The woman is upset about the quarantine as it has cut her off from the pie shop and is in desperate need for the quarantine gate to be open as she is hosting a dinner party on Friday. The doctor tries to explain the situation to her, but she is having none of it. The joy doctor then explains they need a thermostat, whatever that is, to fix an issue. Thankfully, Phil has told me what a thermostat is. It is a variable resistor used to control the frame state of the quarantine potentiometer, of course. We can find one in the Department of Scientific Research as Arthur will need it to get past the quarantine blockade. Outside is a sign saying, "Visit the House of 1984. Holy George Orwell reference, Batman. This has to be one of my favourite parts of the game as it really shows the imagination of the creators. From typewriters with a pavilion attached, masks with small radios to listen to Uncle Jack to the cliché flying car. Somehow I've always enjoyed games or movies showing what they thought the future would look like, and there is no difference. Unfortunately, the thermostat is not there. Arthur believes it is in the main office. I would say sadly the door to the office is closed. However, there is another way to get in, and it involves creating a big bang by using equipment below the office. By setting up the devices in a certain order, Arthur can charge up the cannon to blow a hole in the wall. Inside we meet Richard Arkwright, who thanks Arthur for fixing the hot flash. He seems impressed Arthur managed to fix 3 machines at once, offers him a job. Though he is flattered, Arthur declines and asks for the thermostat. Richard happily hands it over, saying once we are finished with it, to hand it over to the people who need it. Arthur approaches the broadcast tower where we are informed by the Red Bobby that due to the doctors of Wellington Health Institute have locked down the entire district. Arthur says he will go and sort it out. The Bobby replies if he got it sorted then he would be the hero of the entire parade, making a comment that the plague isn't real. Hearing this with how the world is today feels nostalgic. Our next stop is to go to Wellington Wells Health Institute to lift the quarantine, then come back to hopefully get into the building. Sounds easy, right? There are 2 ways of doing this. 1. Take some sunshine and waltz past the spankers and the headmistress, or deactivate them. Once Arthur is past them, he makes his way to the institute and it's time for Metal Gear Solid, literally. The building is full of joy doctors and red bobbies who would be more than happy to grab Arthur and inject him with God knows what. While creeping around, Arthur sees a seminar of a plague victim and the doctors discussing potential treatment. This is physical proof there is a plague, and the doctors are finding it hard to cure, as well as getting the plague victims to function, such as speech or recollection. For our protagonist, there is no time to dwell on this as he needs the codes to release the quarantine. Arthur finds them in the director's office. Next to the codes there is a memo discussing the lack of doctors due to the men in Wellington Wells are not mentally equipped to become doctors. The ones who have applied became unstable due to the bad joy. More issues are becoming clear and higher powers are becoming desperate. Another interesting sight in the office is the statue. It is a joy doctor. When you look to the right, there is a statue of Dr. Verloc with the words "Fuck Verloc" scrawled. Does this act of vandalism have a meaning behind it? Clearly the joy doctors are not happy with him for some reason and decided to tear down his statue and replace it. Arthur needs to get to the quarantine grid now. On our way, we overhear over the PA system a downer with plague has escaped the labs. Could they be talking about Arthur? Nonetheless, Arthur has to get moving before he is caught. Yet when Arthur passes through a door, we hear a voice saying, "I've been waiting for you." He turns around to see a joy doctor with a syringe. Another joy doctor grabs Arthur and he is sedated. Arthur wakes up to hear a voice asking when the coconut joy will take effect. Arthur is strapped to a chair and about to be experimented on with the use of disturbing images and sounds. The first image is a town being bombed with a woman screaming. There doesn't seem to be a reaction from Arthur. The next is a train. In front is a woman holding her crying child. Standing by the train is a boy who looks a lot like Percy. The joy doctor notes Arthur had a strong reaction but hopes it's just the equipment not properly calibrated. However, in the next flash image, Percy is there again. Although he is not an image, he is moving and talking. Percy is banging on the glass, screaming, no, begging for Arthur to come back. This greatly affects Arthur and the doctors notice it, stating the coconut isn't terribly effective at all. Ben quickly asks not to tell anyone he said that. It appears they are still testing new formulas for joy. As mentioned before, the resources they used to make the original recipe have run dry, and now they are trying badly to create a new formula to get the same effect. Clearly it is not working, as seen in Dr. Locke's secret room and the experiment Arthur went through. Happy with the information they have gained from the observation, the joy doctors release the binds holding Arthur to the chair and tell him to take the door on the left back to his cell. For some reason, the button to open the door does not seem to be working. No matter how many times they slam the button, it does not work. Suddenly there is an explosion. The doctors are dead. Now is Arthur's chance to escape and deactivate the quarantine protocol. Escaping is hard, as by deactivating the protocol releases all the downers from their cells, and the doctors seem to have gone insane and are now attacking each other. The broadcast tower is now open for Arthur to get in and access the train station. When we enter, the train station is in just as great shape as the underground tunnels. There are fires, floors have collapsed, taking the track and train with them. Arthur must find another way. The vents seem to be the only way to get through. While crawling through, Arthur finds a body of a woman who he recognises. It's Prudence Holmes. Sound familiar? At the beginning of the game, Arthur had asked Victoria Byng when Prudence would be back from holiday, as he had made her a welcome back card. Now we have found her. When examining her to see if she has anything of use, we find she has sunshine. She was off her joy. It seems like Arthur had decided to find a way out. Regretfully, motorline pipes have been damaged and leaking heavily with fumes travelling through the vents. Without a gas mask, Prudence did not stand a chance. As Arthur leaves the vents, he enters a vast mine of purple crystals. This seems to be where the motorline comes from. Our protagonist now must venture through the mines to leave Wellington Wells. When asked by a worker what Arthur is doing there, he claims the executive committee asked him to see how things were going there. The worker replies with information about how things are not peachy. Due to the team's reckless behaviour, half the mine has caved, and if they use heavy machinery again, then the rest will follow, including the parade above. Arthur suggests they move the activator to stop this from happening. On our way to find the machine, we come across a memory called Eureka. It seems to take place the day Arthur and Percy went to the train station to go to Berlin. I've got it! What if you come with me? But I'm too old. What if I sneak you on the train? But that's against the rules. If we get caught, I'll just say that it was a mix-up and you can play dumb. Are you sure? Remember how we snuck you on the camping trip? Didn't it work out brilliantly? Just trust me. I trust you, Arthur. I said I trust you, Arthur. We'll go to Germany together. We'll take care of each other no matter what happens. Now we know why Percy was at the train station. Arthur had convinced him to go to Germany with him. It makes me ask if this was planned all along. Could it be Arthur was not only looking for a way not to go to Germany, but used it as an opportunity to get rid of his brother? What was his motivation to do such a thing? Or did he simply consider Percy an acceptable loss to save his own skin? Back to reality. Arthur activates the machine, causing the mine to collapse. He has to get out or he will die with the workers. After a near miss from the explosions, Arthur finds himself on the main bridge connecting to the mainland. He looks behind him to see the tunnel he came out has collapsed. The mine workers were clearly an acceptable loss to escape Wellington Wells, unlike when Percy was an acceptable loss to remain. While making his way across, Arthur starts to ask himself why he's doing this. Is it really to find Percy? Where would he begin to look? He asks where he would be in Russia or if still in Germany. How did he get there? On the bridge is the last memory. It is the aftermath of Arthur's actions. He comes home where his father asks him what is he doing back. Arthur says they didn't take him. When his father asks for an explanation, Arthur says the Germans got his birthday wrong and said he was too old to go. Noticing Percy is missing, his father asks where his brother is. When Arthur explains he's on the train, his father remarks, "That's some cock-up." Arthur begins to tear up, saying sorry. His father tells him not to be sorry, saying, "At least you don't talk bollocks all the time." Arthur again says he's sorry. His father quickly hushes him with, "Let's not talk about this anymore." "At least you don't talk bollocks all the time." It's a telling statement about Mr. Hastings and his son. Clearly, the father favoured Arthur as he was born normal and was quick to accept he wouldn't see his firstborn again. It feels there was no love for Percy from his father, which makes what Arthur did feel worse. This is what Arthur has suppressed. He had betrayed his brother, allowed the Germans to take him. The bridge is barricaded with a sign stating to stop skippers for their own good by saying constables finding any unauthorised person past this sign is mentally deranged, and if they claim to be hungry, it is evidence of joy withdrawal and should be handed over to Dr. Verloc at Hayworth Labs as they attempted to leave Wellington Wells. A pretty cruel instruction given the famines in Wellington Wells. Arthur walks past the sign and is greeted by a constable. Handing over his ID, the constable leaves Arthur is an engineer and starts a conversation as they walk across. "Mr. Hastings, just when I've given up all hope of seeing an engineer. You know, sir, we've come to the end of our time. Some of us can't run, some of us stand by our post, some of us take care of our brother." The sentence startles Arthur and he asks, "My brother? What are you saying?" The constable replies, "All men is brothers." Arthur sighs and quickly replies, "Of course." The constable scratches his face due to the irritations the mask is causing. He looks at Arthur. It's times like these what try men's souls. They try men's souls. Arthur is taken back as he recognises the constable as the one at the train station. He is hit by a flashback. The constable is trying to get Arthur back on the train while in the background Percy has jumped off trying to find him and is being apprehended by another constable. Arthur has 2 ID cards in his hand and gives Percy to the policeman claiming to be his, and he was just dropping off his brother. The constable does not seem convinced and notes on Percy's ID it mentions he shouldn't be allowed to wander alone. Arthur stammers about how his mother thinks he can't take care of himself, and the truth was he wanted to go to Germany with his brother Arthur to take care of each other. He then goes on to say he tried to sneak on the train, but Arthur told him not to, as we have to follow the rules. Hypothetical Arthur is clearly more ethical than the real one. The constable lets him go but tells him, "This is a day we will all come to regret, Mr. Hastings, but I am not going to put one more child on that train than my duty obligates me to do so. Run along then." During the exchange of words, Percy can be heard screaming for Arthur, and before he leaves the station, Arthur watches the train go with his brother at the back end window, banging on it, while looking at his brother in panic. Looking back, there was a sign or two about Percy's age. Also at the start, when we see a picture of Arthur and Percy in the newspaper article, you can clearly tell there is a height difference. I know you shouldn't judge a person by height, however in this case it backs up Percy was the oldest. We know now what happened. Arthur convinced Percy to come with him to Germany under the guise they would be together, as he knew Percy would miss him dearly. While his brother was not looking, Arthur jumped off the train in an attempt to leave but was caught by a constable. He then lied and had Percy's passport to back up his claim. I refuse to believe the constable fell for this. I believe he only went with it as he clearly stated he did not want to put another child on the train. As I said, this was clearly planned. Arthur had his own passport and Percy's. Without the passport, Percy could not prove he was too old to go and be let off. And maybe Arthur feared he'd be sent back onto the train if the truth was discovered, so decided not to plant his own passport on Percy. Coupled with his father's reaction, Arthur knew Percy would not be missed by their own father, who he himself was frustrated by Percy's odd behaviour and slow learning. It seems to show they did not have any sort of father-son relationship, as he is more relieved Arthur had come home instead of Percy. But what about their dear mother? There is a side quest where Arthur digs up her grave to find a picture of Percy buried with her. With the timing of her illness, a name for it is not given, and her death, it can be suggested she loved her eldest son dearly, and loss proved too much as she died 5 years later. Arthur for some reason never considered her in his actions. Not much is said about their relationship. It could be Mr. Hastings favoured Arthur while Mrs. Hastings favoured Percy, as he, Arthur, always wondered if his mother knew the truth of what he did. Maybe Arthur was jealous of the strong bond between the two. Note also that Arthur, as an adult, can be very persuasive among men, but always gets flustered when it comes to women. Perhaps he has some issues with women stemming from this event, as well as the one with Sally. It all builds to a strong case Arthur had planned this. He had the means with Percy's unquestionable trust and loyalty. Percy always trusted Arthur in what he says and believes it wholeheartedly. As seen throughout the game, he is clearly intelligent as he navigates through the city and when needed talk his way through areas the average dope head couldn't. Including manipulation, however, now he is older. His skills in this area have waned slightly, but he can still get it done. It brings the question, is Arthur a good person at all? He himself wonders why he is going through all this trouble. Is it for Percy's sake, to save him? Or is it to find a way to justify his actions? We will look into an answer once we have covered Sally and Ollie Starkey, as more information is found in their journeys to create a whole picture. For now, you can come to your own conclusions. Coming out of the flashback, the constable asks if he is alright. Arthur says he'd best be on his way. Unable to keep his emotions, Arthur leans against the railings and whispers he did something terrible. The constable joins him, stating they all had done something we regret, and how it never quite goes away. Arthur speaks about how they, he and Percy, would go to Germany together. He would hold their passports, and then how he walked off the train with his passport. He speaks of regret not being able to make up to him now. The constable replies, "No, sir, I imagine you cannot." Arthur asks who is there to forgive him. The constable says some try to forget, but Arthur says that is no longer an option. "I suppose you must treat this as a gift, to know who you are. Without that, there's no hope for wisdom." As the constable says this, his eyes are full of sadness and regret. He too feels the pain of what happened and is trying to help. Arthur wishes he still believed in some sort of mercy. The constable replies, "Life goes on. That is the mercy. Come on, sir. Once you're out there, you'll know what to do." With that, Arthur takes off his mask and carries on walking along the bridge. Sadly, we have come to the end of our time now, and at the end of Arthur's journey. Join us next time where we will start the story of Sally Boyle, Arthur's childhood friend and a love that never happened.